to have 100 years of different people with different stories, different generations, different backgrounds, but all about how they feel connected to it, because that's why you're going to go, is because you're connected to it.
The Alcoma School, they knew where it is now. When they built that, it was 1949, I think. And then it had moved from just west of where James Graham lives, that was the Bo Slope School, I think, high school. And then it moved further west to on the Falkers land right on the corner. And I still think that after it was all said and done, that school was moved to Bow City.
So I had Mrs. Nairn in grade 3, and she was a lovely, lovely teacher. She would give us a quarter on our birthdays, and that was rich. We were just rich, and she grew geraniums in her in the west window there, and they were beautiful.
Right there, the Quonset. And we had Cheryl Andrews when I was in grade 1. She taught us music. So we had a big bench out there, and we did it through the winter too. So she would play her harpsichord, and then we would sing songs. So we had our mitts on, and we would sing our songs, and we could see our breath on the really cold days because there's no heat in there. But we all had fun. And what I remember most about that, Cheryl was so good with her harpsichord. Even when it was cold, she could still play the harpsichord when it was cold. But she introduced us to music at the school, and we were just out in the Quonset so we could make all the noise outside, and it was quiet in the school.
Yeah, so Alcoma School, my grades 7 through 9 years were really good in setting me up for writing, and everything I'd learned in that time frame. I think many people would agree with me about those years for the teachers that we had and the things that we learned, and it set me up enough to inspire me to write a book later on. And I published a book, and I'm writing my second book, and a lot of that is in thanks to what I learned in Alcoma School. So
I think one of my favorite memories of Alcoma School is the summer when we had the traveling library come around. It was a gift.
I had Mr. Irwin as a teacher for science class and gym class, and he was also my basketball coach. He did pardon my language, but a damn good job of teaching us basketball. He was tough when he needed to be tough, but soft when he needed to be soft, and he just got along with everybody really great, and he was a good guy all around.
I remember Sue's dad telling me a story about Shoko and some of the Ohamas, that they weren't going to be allowed to go to the school at Rainier. And your dad said, they're damn well going to school here. And everybody agreed, of course. So.
Happy 100th birthday, Alcoma. You don't look a day over 29. I never would have guessed it, but congratulations. My name is Teek Chandler. I grew up in the beautiful hamlet of Scandia, and I went to Alcoma. I graduated grade 9 in 2008, I believe. And I also think that I possibly had the smallest grade 9 class that Alcoma has ever had. I'd love to hear from someone who had a smaller class. We had 3 in my year. Shout out to Brady and Sarah.
Some of the fun things I remember about going to school in Alcoma. In phys ed, we did archery with Mr. Nibbs, and he'd always set up this huge net at the end of the gym and put balloons up, and we would shoot the balloons, and I thought I was kind of good at it, so it was fun.
We did soup in wintertime. They put it on the little burner in a cauldron, and it was, Campbell's soup, tomato, vegetable, whatever. And we'd all bring a little bowl, and we'd all get the soup in a bowl. So every winter day, kids had hot soup. And that was I still like tomato soup with peanut butter sandwiches. Because that's what was in there. That was lunch, right?
Marvin, whenever I make tomato soup, he's always, can you put some macaroni in that? Because we had winter soup lunches, and he loves his macaroni and tomato soup from the Alcoma days.
Remember the Quonset, that little Quonset hut thing? That was there all through school for me. And that's where Jack Belcher came and taught music lessons in that little thing. It was sitting on the other side of the school. And you'd have your half-hour lesson, he'd drag you out of class and go take your music lesson. Yeah.
Happy Centennial, Alcoma School!
In the school, we'd go out into there was a ditch that run back of the school, and we'd always go out there at noon and then walk up the ditch to the canal and catch these minnows. And we could get back to about 2 o'clock maybe, if we were lucky. And that was what we'd done. And then outside the school, there was a big slough. In the mornings when the weather got cold, the ice would get spongy, and we'd run across that and see who could make it without going in. And then in the summertime, we snared gophers and made harnesses out of binder twine and hooked them up and had fun that way.
So my brother, when he was younger, when he went to Alcoma, he was going into kindergarten, and I believe it was his first day. And he went into the grade 1 class instead because he didn't want to be in grade 0. And then the teacher came, they're like, we're missing one kid from kindergarten. And do you know what teacher that was?
I don't know what teacher, but
okay, so there's a teacher that's like, we're missing one kid from kindergarten. Who is it? My brother, like, without hesitation, pointed to Brody Ketchmark. It's like, it's him. That kid's in grade 0. And he was just like, it's not me, it's not me. And yeah, that was it. He didn't want to be in grade 0. So he's like, take Brody. Like, I'm not doing this.
On the steps of the new Alcoma school, and just being terrified. Because it was the biggest building I'd ever been in, it seemed like. And Bill Tell and Roger Bieber were on the step, and they said, you come on in with us, we'll show you where to go. And I really always appreciated that. Yeah. I thought, boy, they showed me around the school.
It was a selection camp that I was invited to. But I felt guilty about going because I wasn't working. I wasn't earning a living. I just finished college and I needed to start making money. Anyway, she gave me a great piece of advice. And she said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Not many people get the opportunity to do this. So go for it. And that's exactly what I did. I went for it. And 21 years later, I went to 6 Paralympics, won 3 golds, a bronze, and 4 or 5 world championships.
Lots of little moments of projects. In junior high, we had lots of fun options, I think. I remember we did calligraphy, and then we used that to decorate pretty much everything, our invitations and our cookbooks. That was Mrs. C. And I still have my cookbook, so does Ron.
Okay. Well, it's kind of nice to hear about the 100th anniversary. I mean, the fact that the school's existed that long is pretty special. My memories of Alcoma basically are summed up in the words of the Department of Education when they did their evaluation there of terrific kids, terrific staff, well-organized and supportive community. And they gave it the designation of community school, which was a designation back in those days. The only thing they said was we weren't going to get the funding for it, which was kind of disappointing, but anyway.
I think we were lucky to have a school like Alcoma, where it was 1 teacher per grade. And for the most part, it was a community that took part in the school. And the community at that time was kind of steady. People moved in, but they stayed. And that made a nice community and school spirit.
It was really good. I wish all kids could have gone to that school. It wasn't all good. I got in trouble, but it wasn't one time I got in trouble. I didn't deserve it, that I remember. Of course, at the time I thought probably, but Except when Mrs. Murphy wouldn't believe that there was a rock stuck in my nose. I won't go into that story. Her name was Gladys Murphy. And I'd stuck a rock in my, I don't know, a little flat, and she looked in there and she thought I was telling her a story. And my mom took the rock out when I got home.
I've always loved Alcoma School. My dad and all his siblings went to Alcoma School. I went there with all of my siblings, and our 3 children went there, and they got such an extraordinary education. Some of the most wonderful people, the most talented, the kindest, the bravest people I have ever met, I met at Alcoma School. The students, the parents, the teachers, the community. Some extraordinary individuals came from that school, and I have always loved it. Happy birthday, Alcoma School.
Hey, this is a story about the level of discipline the bus drivers had. They could kick you off the bus whenever and wherever they thought you deserved it. So we're coming home, we're around the Murphy place, Merritt and Gladys Murphy's, and Schaff is acting up. So Bud Blomquist stops the bus, opens the door and says, "All right, you're out of here, get off." And he walked home, it's probably 5 miles. He just let him off the bus, walked home. There was no more trouble from Armand Schaff after that.
I'm in my 32nd year of driving school bus, and they're just been fabulous, these kids have. I get to say good morning and good night to them, and after all these years, their lives change and things happen with them, and they send me pictures of what's going on in their lives, and it continues on, and I'll always be there for them.
And you don't have them in schools anymore, where you sat on the benches and you went around, and oh, that was so much fun. That was the best merry-go-round ever. If I ever saw one anywhere, I'd buy it and build it. It would, because you had the benches and people sat on it, and the big kids would just run, and we'd just hold on like, oh, we're gonna fall off, right? Like, it was great, and that's one of my best memories, was riding that thing.
Some of my fondest memories at Alcoma School. One was the merry-go-round, that you had to bring your own nuts and bolts from home to put it back together again, so everybody could ride on the merry-go-round, because the bolts kept falling out of it, and nobody from the school would fix it. So us farm kids had to fix it.
My fondest memories is the Christmas concerts in Alcoma School. And I remember one year, all of us kids had to go home and learn how to sing Silent Night and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in Japanese. And we sang it in front of the whole school. It was such a good
Sing it for
memory.
us.
Yeah. Kiyoshi kono yoru hoshi wa.
It's the people that taught us that are the school, not the buildings. We were in the Quonset, and look what I learned in the Quonset.
Because it was such a small school, as you said, when you're in a big school, you don't know the teachers. In fact, they tell you not to socialize with the students, and you really definitely have a different feel when you're in a small community. You know the teachers personally, they're in all the activities. You have really small classes, so all the kids do all the same thing. At the time, you think, oh, it's kind of boring because it's all the same people, but at the same time, it's a community, so everybody's doing everything together.
In the spring, the roads were really bad all the time, and I remember my dad was saddling up the horse, and then the lynx, of course, they were all cowboys. They would come along, pick me up, not pick me up, but I'd ride to school with them. When we got to school, the older guys would unsaddle the horses and put it in the barn. And then sometimes at noon in the summertime or in the spring, the older guys would get out and race their horses till they caught hell again, And then they're back in the barn they go, and then it all got turned around and everybody went back home. The older kids looked after the younger kids.
One of the things that totally stands out is the boys' stairs, the girls' stairs, and the teacher stairs. And oh my gosh, if you were super brave, you might put a few feet down the boys' stairs or a few feet up onto the teacher stairs. But then you had to get out of there in case, you got in trouble.
And that you'd be trying to serve, and there'd be people hanging over the stage trying to watch the game. You'd have to bump them over so you could serve. And then on the other corner of the court, there'd be people ordering hot dogs over and drinks and stuff right in the corner of the gym. But the place was full. Everybody came and watched, and the whole school was full. It was awesome.
Some of my favorite memories when I think back on my time at Alcoma was definitely all the sports and just the camaraderie that we all shared in that. I love that we had the opportunity to start in grade 4, and we had a grade 4 to 6 league with Tilly and Rolling Hills. And I remember that being a really big deal when we were little kids. It was awesome. And it was such a great start to our sports careers, and it was just awesome. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, in grade 8 we had Mary Anderson, and I just thought she was great. You see, we got along good. She had a good sense of humor, and I just loved her voice. She had this Scottish lilt, and it was and she came from nowhere. Nobody really knew her. And so, we got to break her in anyway.
School things, and I remember the plays too in junior high. That was fun. Sam McGee and Shannon playing O Canada. They'd always get her to play O Canada, and she would always miss that one note, and then she'd start over. It was so cute.
Right from the word go, there wasn't a clique of people that would kind of hang out by themselves, and this other group of people would hang out by themselves. You're kind of one cohesive, I don't know, everyone got invited to the same birthday parties, and you all went to his birthday parties, and they all came to your birthday parties, and it was like that from ECS to grade 9 until we went to high school. And that was a pretty unique experience that I don't think is real common at some bigger schools.
The Alcoma School I will always and forever remember will be the one with Mr. Irwin and Mr. Coleman. Their bond together was definitely the heart of the school. They took the time to bond and learn from each and every child. They pushed you to be your best, but not only did they push you, but they helped you to succeed to your fullest. Those two made the school feel like a safe place.
At Alcoma School, there was the teachers that I remember the most. It was Miss Godfrey was grade 1, Miss Caverly was in grade 2, and who we know now as Mrs. Gloria Evans, Mrs. Merriman 3, Mrs. Murphy in grade 4, Mrs. Rowett in grade 5, and of course my mother in grade 6. And I still think that Rick Massey and myself hold the record for the most lines written in grade 6 at the Alcoma School. And Mom didn't just make you write one line. Every line consisted of a paragraph. So numerous lunch hours were spent in the classroom writing lines.
Schoolhouse, so I think we had from grade 1 to grade 8 all in one room. And the teacher, of course, had to teach all of us at the same time. And some of the older boys, big boys, I guess, they were sort of in charge of everybody. So that meant there was Alan Nielsen and Jack Murphy, and they were the bosses, and we did what they said.
When I think back on my favorite teachers and staff in the school, it's always people who were from the community or really involved in community events and things like that. So people like Mr. Mungle, Mrs. Waddle, Mrs. Christensen, Mrs. Wagner, Mrs. Kamistik, and Mr. McIntyre, when he was there, he always came out from Brooks to all the community things. And that really built a bridge from school to home for me. That place-based education is so important.
Then there was no track, so we actually ran on the oiled road right by Alcoma towards the feedlot. So one of the classes we were running there, and then I said to one of the guys, I don't know if it was Randy or Carl, I said, okay, let's race in. So there was a whole group of us, and I sprinted and I got ahead of everyone. And next thing you know, bam, I got hit by a car. The speech teacher, Mrs. Russ, swerved and missed the group and swerved back to hit it, and she hit me off the road. And she hit me so hard, I guess everyone went fine in the air, and my shoes were still left on the road. She knocked me right out of my shoes.
Also, a really fond memory of mine I don't know what they call it, but it's like the Christmas craft fair that they did once a year, where a student from every year, K through 9, all got together and did a craft. I have really fond memories of that, being a kid and doing that, like young, a kindergarten kid, and just idolizing these grade 9s, thinking that they're so old and they're so mature, I can't wait to be like them someday. But then also looking at it from the opposite perspective as like the elder grade 9er, looking at these kids, and you just remember how it felt to be them. So you like had the weight of it, that you knew you had to be a good role model for these kids. And just that sense of community that I don't think you'd get at a different school that didn't have K through 9 and didn't have that small school experience. So super grateful just for all of the things that Alcoma has brought me in my life.
Kids in Calgary would ask me how many people I'd shot, and you know, can you fire off your gun, or you can spray us with pepper spray. And whereas I didn't get any of that in Alcoma. It was respectful questions about, you know, how do you develop, you know, how do you get the skills? What do I need to do to be able to do things to become a police officer? And, you know, just very insightful, thoughtful questions by the kids. And in that class, there was one student asked like 3 or 4 questions, a young boy, Joel Davidson. And I answered his questions, and he came up to me afterwards and thanked me, and like all the kids did. And I never thought anything of it, and I laughed.
Currently a police officer with Calgary Police Service. I want to say one of the guys that influenced me was Dick Nyhouse, and I remember him coming here to the school. He did a speech and talked to us as kids, and I am one of those police officers to this day. I think he influenced me in that decision. So.
Through my journey at Alcoma School, I have experienced some of the best memories of my life. It was the place where I got to make some of my very first friends. The teachers were kind, supportive, and always motivating me to do my best, whether it was in academics or in sports. It is a chapter of my life that I will definitely never forget.
Grade 7, they catch us smoking out behind the halls. So other than that, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, George used to say, all I had to do is look out my office window and I could see the smoke coming over. I thought the hall was on fire, he said. So
I came by bus from Meadow Lake through Edmonton down to Brooks and was met by the assistant superintendent of schools. And he's driving me out to Rainier, and he points out all those trees over there. And that's where you're going. And I just about cried, because I came from northern Saskatchewan with all those trees, and there were hardly any at Rainier. And I got homesick every spring.
Everybody. And when I got to Alcoma School and I was playing the piano and teaching lessons, I got to know all the students and the parents, and it felt more like a community and a family where we were all comfortable, and I could share what I loved, which was music, and I had great responses from a lot of students that were enjoying it just as much. And so it was really exciting for me.
And I'm living a dream. I love my job. I love the small town. I love the community feel. When that door opens, you always want to peek around the corner, and you kind of go, who's here? Who's here to visit? And I love that. So that's what brought me here.
Driving into the schoolyard, and I'm going, what did I do? And, you know, it was June, so the feedlot was in full force, and the little feedlot flies were everywhere. But I walked in, and so it was a PD day. So the kids were already gone. This would be like right near the end of June. So literally, I walked in, Mrs. Trotter had jeans and cowboy boots on, or something to that effect, and I'm going, I think I'm gonna like it here. I just had that feeling that, yeah, this is gonna be okay.
I was part of the first wave of kids that went from Jenny Lind to Alcoma. And I took grade 1 and grade 2 in Jenny Lind, and then went to grade 3 in Alcoma. And Mrs. Narum, who was one of my favorite teachers, was my teacher in grade 3. And we had Mrs. Murphy, Gladys, was my grade 4 teacher, and she was my favorite teacher there. because we got to go to phys ed every week. Nobody else, they'd always find, oh, we're behind on that, we're behind on whatever. But not Mrs.
You
Murphy.
remember George Hoffman being in Rainier at the school, and there was a fresh, we happened to be in the bathroom at the same time. We come out of the bathroom, and there was a fresh case of tissue paper at the bottom of the stairs. So George says, well, I know what to do with this. So he grabbed a little one, and it was fairly good sized rolls, and fired it over the boys' stairs, down into the girls' stairs, and we went around into the auditorium, picked it up, and scattered the rest of it all over the chairs. There was supposed to be a home school meeting that night. So when we went to go home, and when the bell rang to go home, the buses wouldn't leave, and there was, 5 boys in the room at the time. And Timko came in and he said, now maybe somebody would like to own up to this so we can get these buses on their way. Well, nobody would, of course, so he sent all of us down there to clean it up. So we had a little help cleaning it up, but George and I created a little problem that day, I guess.
I came from the city of Calgary to Rainier, Alberta to teach school, and it was an eye-opener for me. But I loved the little children, and to this day, I have kept in touch with some of them. And I am so thankful and grateful that they have turned out to be such lovely, successful human beings.
I really like Alcoma because of lunch, snack, recess, and gym.
So we went back in. I gave the girls a pep talk because they sort of went, oh, we'll never beat Rolling Hills. And I said, out of the whole tournament, we came the closest. No one else everyone else was beaten by double digits, and we were within single digits. So I gave them the pep talk, and we played the game, and again, very competitive. We worked really hard, and we're able to win, I think, by 3 points or 1 point. I don't know which it was, but we ended up winning the zone championship banner, and to say we were thrilled was just a bit of an understatement.
When Paul Henderson scored the goal to win it, all 3 classrooms rushed downstairs into the auditorium, and Darlene Mancher played O Canada, and we sang it 3 or 4 times. I'm not, and George was kind of standing at the door going, and I think he finally joined in on the last round of O Canada. I mean, that was amazing.
Hi guys, I loved my time here teaching at Alcoma School because of all of the involvement of the wonderful families that we had here and the awesome kiddos that I still get to run into and see sometimes. I also love the K-9 buddy groups and spirit reading groups and all of the work that they get to do together and play together and be together. Ollie, what would you like to say?
Alcoma School, cool.
One of the couple memories that I had that were the best were the small school sports, and everybody had to play. Nobody really had much of a choice, or else nobody was able to be on the team, or we wouldn't have enough players. And just going around all the schools and making lots of new friends and stuff like that.
And one kind of final special thing that holds a special place in my heart, I guess, is the fact that me and my Aunt Sue and my grandma all started our teaching careers not only at Alcoma, but actually in the same classroom, which I think is just kind of magical. So Alcoma will forever have a special place in our family's heart.
The Alcoma School I love and remember has always felt like a community. The teachers and students learned a lot from each other and taught us all a lot of things. The teachers there always encouraged us to do our best in both academics and in sports. And they taught us that expressing our opinions and showing our different interests was always a good thing.
Mr. Payton, in the summertime, used to get a horse and buggy and take us all to school at first at Boslow and then to Alcoma. And then when Mr. Gosman, when they got the bus, he didn't do us. But in the wintertime, Mr. Payton used to get a sleigh with the horses, and he used to warm up bricks, those bricks you use on house, warm up bricks to put on the bottom so our feet wouldn't get cold. And he would put blankets on top. I mean, we used to go in 30 below weather, let's face it, 2.5 miles. And I mean, it was cold.
Here at Alcoma School because we have so many great teachers and they have so many great adventurous ideas and they let us do so many things.
Before it was kind of Norman Ohama and Walter Piper and George Graham and I, and we always used to kind of hang out together. My mother said at one point I came home, it must have been grade 2 or 3 or something, came home and Walter and Norman and George and I were going to go ranching together. Oh. I convinced all them that was the best thing to do.
What I told, mainly it was for the students, is that, it's a family. And you've got uncles who drive you crazy, cousins you might not really get along with, but when push comes to shove, it's still a family. And those bonds that are created from the 10 years of going to school together just are always going to be there.
Alcoma School we didn't have a gymnasium. There was no formal gym program or phys ed program. At recess and lunch hour, you ran out, you formed your teams, you played ball, football, soccer, whatever. In the spring, there was the track meet that you had to get ready for if you wanted to participate. But you did it all on your own. There was nobody there to supervise you. There was nobody to say, do this or you can't do that. We just played. We were kids, and it all worked out.
I am just super grateful to all the teachers that we had, right from Mrs. Hurley right up to grade 9. And I can remember each and every one, and every teacher is unique. But I always felt that you had our best interests at heart and you were trying to bring out the best that we could be. It didn't necessarily have to be academics, maybe you brought out cooking skills or whatever. I always felt that Alcoma kind of adapted to the student rather than trying to get the students onto whatever plan they had.
Some of those same kids that I was able to teach on and off for those 10 years talk to me on a pretty regular basis, and one of them even moved 2 doors next door to me in town, so I can't get away from Rainier even if I try. It's but not that I really want to, because I constantly have conversations with people and reminders of just how wonderful that experience was, and I think it's just going to shape me into a stronger teacher and a better human being going forward.
So some fantastic teachers, and the Frolins, oh my goodness. And when we got to Jenny Lind, and we were the super cool kids at Jenny Lind school, and then these Frolins came on board. They were so cool, and we just had such a great time, the freedom of being at Jenny Lind. Many, many great memories. We were so lucky to be country kids at Alcoma and Jenny Lind.
Very short. Long story short, it's just the people that you just don't forget. Yeah. That's the best part. So
when all is said and done, it's the small things in life that count. It isn't so how much money you've got or how well you've achieved or anything like that. It's the thoughtfulness and the kindness that really matters. And I'm sure you've all witnessed this in and from your classmates over the years. the phone calls when you're having problems, the visits, the notes, Facebook, the caring. You have so much to share and talk about. I hope you have a great reunion.